Hello, I'm Adam Teitelbaum, and welcome to this week's discussion about the Parshat Noach, one of the perhaps most recognizable stories in the Torah, and I would argue maybe one of the most misunderstood stories of the Torah. So I'm excited to jump right into it, and as we are going to do to elevate this moment of Torah study by acknowledging that it is something holy. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. So here we are, continuing the conversation about the way in which God created this world for us to be able to have this beautiful relationship with Hashem. And in a lot of ways, that relationship is manifest in the way in which we treat other humans, the way we treat ourselves, and especially the people around us. And so after the Garden of Eden, after Cain kills Abel, and then the way that humanity begins to evolve, God sees that there's terrible lawlessness in the land, and he decides that it's beyond the pale and he needs to do something about this. So God comes to this man, Noach, a man, Ish Tzadik Tamim B'dorotav, somebody who, in a translation that I think I want to add into this, he was righteous in his generation, but Tamim, in a somewhat simple way. I thought of this as a comparison, as a juxtaposition of the four sons in the Passover Seder, which, not to go all the way down this path, but of the four sons, the wise, the wicked, the simple, and the one who can't ask. One of them, Tom, is the simple one, which just gets the very top level answers from the Passover Seder. So here you have a man, Noach, who is the righteous in his generation, and God comes to him and says, Noach, there's a problem out here. I'm going to destroy the world, but you're the only person who is worth saving. And Noah's response to God when he comes to him and says, this is crickets. He doesn't say anything. When I was reading it this week, and I know I'm adding a lot of parental analysis into this, when I was reading this week's story, and it struck me that when God says, I'm going to destroy the world, Noah says nothing. I'm thinking, wait a second. There's always a negotiation. Even Adam and Eve, Cain, they respond to God when God asks them a question. But for Noah to not say anything, so I was thinking about this week. Here we are, a peak parenting moment. I will spare you all the details, but suffice it to say, I was cleaning a child who we are in the midst of potty training in a public restroom. And in the middle of cleaning this child at a restaurant, he says, Dad, when we go back, let's get dessert. And I said, I don't know, bud. I don't know if we're going to get dessert tonight. And he said, but I promise I'm going to use my manners and ask nicely. And I said, that's very important. And you should always be using your manners. But just because you use your manners doesn't mean that you're going to get everything that you want. To which he responds, just say yes. And I burst out laughing. I couldn't contain how funny it was. But just the moment that the negotiation is always happening. So God comes to Noach and says, the world is going to be destroyed. You're the only one who can save it. And Noah says nothing. So there's a midrash. A midrash is a story that adds context to the Torah to be able to better understand what's actually going on. And the midrash about Noach is that when God commanded him to build the ark, he commanded him to actually plant the trees, which would then grow into what was going to be made into the ark. So imagine if Noach is building this forest that he's going to need to grow all these trees to build an ark. Imagine the opportunities that he had, to reflect on this conversation and say, wait a second, why are we going to destroy the world? God, if you're going to destroy the world and I'm somebody who you see is worth saving, what can I do about it? Can I go out there? Can I be a part of this? And conversely, imagine all the people who saw what he was doing, and he was building this huge forest, planting this forest, and people would go, hey, dude, what are you doing? And Noah would at least have the opportunity to say, I'm planting these trees so I can build an ark to save my family, so that when God destroys the world with a flood, my family is safe. And they might say, wait a second, I don't want to be destroyed in a flood. What can I do to change my behavior? So there was at least an opportunity that Noah was given to be able to change course. One of the lessons that we take away from this Parsha, from Parshat Noach, is a beautiful teaching that I learned from Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, who talks about the importance and the power of individual responsibility for the collective. And in Noah's time, what God had noticed was that the individuals were so focused on their own desires that they lost sight of the notion of collective humanity and collective responsibility. They were killing each other without remorse, and they were behaving in ways that were sinful in every regard. And it was because they were focused on their individual wants and desires. Noah even had an opportunity to at least say, can we at least save my family? And he doesn't say anything. God has to instruct Noah every single step of the way in what Noah needs to do to be able to protect his family. And I think it's an important note in my own analysis of why didn't God just destroy everybody, including Noah? Well, I think that a huge part of the story arc of the Torah is the way in which humanity and God's relationship evolve, especially through human experience. And if God had killed everybody, then they would have had to start all over. But this way, Noah, who one of his sons, Shem, is actually the person that becomes the great-great-great-great-great-grandfather for Abraham, who we're going to meet in next week's Parsha. So there's an important aspect of the Noach the Parsha that talks about understanding the importance of collective responsibility. But then there's one last thing which we learn at the very end of this Parsha, which is the story of the Tower of Babel. And in the Torah, even though there are sometimes seemingly incongruous stories lumped together in a Parsha, there's an opportunity in each of those instances to learn something about why they were grouped together. And so Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs goes further to illuminate the fact that in the Babel story, humanity was actually so focused on the idea of the collective that they ignored the individual. And so here too, there's a lesson to learn that we can't be so focused on the collective that we stamp out individuality. We have to be able to hold these two truths simultaneously. The importance of individual responsibility towards the collective, but also the collective responsibility towards the individual. And it's from this teaching, it's from this Parsha and understanding of this balance that Rabbi Hillel gives us that very famous, very known axiom. Im ein ani li mili, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? Ukshe'ani le'atzmi ma'ani, but if I am only for myself, what am I? Ve'im lo achshav eimatai, and if not now, when? So here we are, Parsha story number 2, where our relationship with Hashem, our relationship with God continues to evolve. We have a few more rules and responsibilities that are on our part as humans, but this relationship is now building into a beautiful symbiotic relationship where humanity is going to start to take responsibility in beautiful ways to push against the grain in order to then fully manifest this opportunity to create an Edenic experience here on earth. So with that, thank you for listening again, and Shabbat Shalom.